Imagine waking up one morning, the pale light of dawn creeping through the curtains, but something feels wrong. The room is familiar, yet it seems foreign. As you slowly sit up, you realize that your mind is buzzing not with the usual morning thoughts, but with something deeper, more unsettling. It's a feeling of unfamiliarity, as if you've just come to in a life that you don't fully recognize as your own. And in that quiet moment, a single question forms in your mind. What if everything you think you know about yourself is not true? It's a strange question to ask, first thing in the morning. You would think that after all this time, you would have a firm grasp on who you are, your habits, your beliefs, your desires. You've spent years building an identity, carving a sense of self from the world around you. But suddenly, in the silence of this early hour, you wonder, what if your very sense of self is a fragile construction, held together by unseen forces you have no control over? The notion is unnerving, isn't it? To think that your mind, that very tool through which you interpret and navigate the world, might be working against you without your knowledge. To think that the decisions you believe are yours, your choices, your desires, your deepest convictions, might not be as free as you assume. There's a paradox here, an unsettling contradiction. What if the thing that defines you, your mind, is the very thing that keeps you trapped? If that's true, it means that the walls of your reality, the boundaries of your very identity, are not constructed by you, but by forces lurking deep beneath the surface. These forces are invisible, elusive, yet they shape every thought, every emotion, every action you take. This isn't some abstract philosophical musing, nor a psychological theory that you can easily dismiss. This is a truth about your mind that's both simple and terrifying. You are not fully in control of yourself, and the more you try to cling to that illusion of control, the tighter the grip of your unconscious mind becomes, shaping your reality in ways you don't even realize. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Right now, you're left with a deeper question. What does this even mean? How can you live in a world where your thoughts, actions, and even your identity are not as autonomous as you've been led to believe? How can you trust your perceptions, your decisions, when the very mind you rely on to navigate the world might be manipulating you from the shadows? This question doesn't just challenge the very essence of what it means to be human. It forces you to confront something far more profound. What does it mean to be free? As you try to make sense of this, the unease grows. Your thoughts feel fragmented, scattered. Your identity begins to unravel, and you can't help but ask, who are you, really? Is the person you see in the mirror the true you, or just a version crafted by unseen influences, fears, desires, societal pressures, things you can't even fully grasp? This is the paradox of the human mind. We believe we are the authors of our own story, yet so much of what we consider us is determined by forces beyond our awareness. Your mind is a labyrinth, a tangle of conscious thoughts and unconscious impulses, and it's not as easy to navigate as you might think. The more you try to understand it, the more it slips through your fingers. And yet, somewhere deep within, you sense that if you can just pierce through this illusion, if you can unlock the mystery of your own mind, everything will change. But how do you even begin? How do you confront the unseen forces that govern your reality when you don't even know where they begin or end? This is where our journey begins, with the recognition that the unconscious mind, that vast, hidden realm within you, holds the answers to the questions you haven't yet fully learned to ask. It holds the key to understanding why you are the way you are, why you make the choices you do, why you think the thoughts that you do. But it also holds a darker truth. If left unchecked, this unconscious mind will continue to shape your reality in ways you cannot even fathom. So, what now? How do you escape the clutches of this hidden force? How do you reclaim your autonomy, your freedom, when the very mind you rely on may be working against you? The unease that gripped you this morning, the nagging feeling that perhaps everything you thought you knew about yourself was a lie, was not a random thought. It's the beginning of a confrontation with a hidden truth, that the vast majority of your life, your actions, your thoughts, and your identity are not the product of your conscious will, but of something far deeper, something far older, the unconscious mind. At this moment, you might be inclined to dismiss this as a mere theory. After all, we live in an era that celebrates individual autonomy and conscious decision-making. We're told that we can control our fate, that we are the architects of our own destiny. But the more you dig into the nature of the unconscious mind, the more this sense of control starts to feel like an illusion, one you've been taught to believe, but one that doesn't stand up to scrutiny. This isn't just speculation. It's rooted in psychology and philosophy. Take Carl Jung, for example. He believed that the unconscious is a vast, complex network of hidden forces that shape every part of our lives. Jung called it the collective unconscious, an inherited structure of memories and archetypes that influence us in ways we cannot even begin to comprehend. He argued that much of our behavior and personality is not solely shaped by our conscious choices, but by ancient, forgotten parts of the psyche, passed down through generations. In his view, the conscious mind is like the tip of an iceberg, floating above a much larger, invisible mass of unconscious material that dictates the majority of our actions. But it's not just Jung who has pointed out the power of the unconscious mind. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, too, seemed to understand this hidden influence. He famously said, "The most perfidious way of harming a cause consists of defending it deliberately with faulty arguments." Nietzsche wasn't talking about abstract ideologies. He was speaking to the ways in which our unconscious minds distort our understanding of reality. Just as faulty arguments can corrupt a philosophical idea, the unconscious corrupts our perception of ourselves, often leading us to defend versions of our identity that are not ours to begin with. This isn't just intellectual theory, it's a deeply human experience. It's the way in which we come to believe in certain ideals or values without understanding why. It's the compulsive habits we can't seem to break, despite knowing they're harmful. It's the quiet self-doubt that echoes in your mind when you try to be yourself in a world that constantly demands you conform. And then there's the work of Jean-Paul Sartre, who argued that humans are condemned to freedom. He pointed out that, while we often try to define ourselves through our choices, we are simultaneously overwhelmed by the vast number of possibilities before us. Yet, Sartre also warned that in the face of this freedom, we often retreat into bad faith, a state of self-deception, where we refuse to acknowledge the full extent of our freedom and responsibility. Instead, we fall back on societal norms, unconscious habits, and comforting illusions, things that make life feel more predictable and manageable, but also more constrained. The unconscious mind, then, becomes a defense mechanism against the existential terror of true freedom. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, recognized this dynamic in his observations about meaning. He saw that the people who could endure the horrors of the concentration camps were often those who could find a sense of meaning, even in the most brutal circumstances. For Frankl, the unconscious mind was not simply a repository of forgotten memories or repressed desires. It was also a source of meaning, yet, for many, it had been hijacked by societal pressures, trauma, and conformity. This hijacking kept people from realizing their true potential and connecting with deeper layers of their psyche. But what does this mean for you? What does it mean for someone who spends their days thinking they are free, thinking they control their destiny, only to realize that they are, in fact, steered by forces they can't see and don't understand? The truth is unsettling. You are living in a kind of psychological prison. A prison not made of walls or bars, but one built of unseen beliefs, unexamined assumptions, and unacknowledged desires. You're trapped by the very things you cannot see, cannot name, cannot control. This unconscious mind, shaped by the forces of evolution, societal conditioning, and personal history, shapes the lens through which you see the world. But there's another layer to this. The unconscious mind doesn't just shape how you see the world. It also shapes how the world sees you. The behavior, patterns, thoughts, and fears hidden within you influence how you interact with others. Your self-image, created from this deep well of unconscious material, is often at odds with the way others perceive you, and even more profoundly, with how you could perceive yourself if you were to truly confront the depths of your mind. This creates a dissonance, a fracture between your external self and your internal experience, which leaves you feeling fragmented and disconnected. At this point, you might feel a sense of despair, If the unconscious mind has this much control over you, can you ever truly be free? If these forces shape you in ways you cannot even understand, how can you ever hope to escape them? How can you navigate the world when it feels as though the very foundation of your existence is built on shifting sands? This brings us to the core of the issue. The more you try to assert control, the more you resist the very forces that define you. And in that resistance, you become trapped in a cycle of unconscious control. This hidden force inside of you, your unconscious mind, may seem distant, foreign, or even irrelevant. But it is, in fact, the most intimate and significant force in your life. And understanding it is the first step to freeing yourself from the unseen chains that bind you. Now that you understand the presence of this hidden force, the unconscious mind, it's time to look at the consequences it has on your life. But here's the thing. You probably won't notice these consequences. The unconscious mind is clever, insidious, and ever-present. And it shapes your world in ways that are so subtle, so deeply woven into the fabric of your existence, that they often go unnoticed. Your choices, your relationships, your very sense of self. These are all influenced by an unseen hand, guiding you along a path that feels entirely your own, even though it's not. You might think of yourself as a rational being, someone who makes decisions based on careful thought and intention. But consider this. When was the last time you made a decision that wasn't influenced by deeply ingrained biases, emotional impulses, or past traumas? When was the last time you acted in a way that was truly free of conditioning, free from the layers of unconscious material that have been silently shaping you since childhood? Take a moment to reflect on your relationships. How many of them are truly based on mutual understanding, honest communication, and free will? Or how many of them are influenced by unconscious patterns, fears, insecurities, long-forgotten wounds that you carry with you without even realizing it? Do you find yourself repeating the same types of relationships over and over, drawn to people who either reflect your deepest desires or your most unresolved traumas? And when conflict arises, do you feel that it often has nothing to do with what's happening in the present moment, but instead with something buried deep in your past? The unconscious mind doesn't just influence the way you see the world, it shapes the way others see you, too. In relationships, especially, your unconscious fears and desires leak out in ways that are often masked as conscious behavior. Take, for instance, the way we might become defensive when someone questions our actions, or the way we respond with anger when we feel threatened. The desire to protect oneself from perceived judgment or rejection often stems from unconscious childhood experiences or deep-seated beliefs about self-worth that you might not even know exist. It is not you, consciously, deciding to be defensive or angry. It's your unconscious mind reacting to a threat it perceives, even if that threat is far removed from the situation at hand. But the consequences go even deeper. Consider the choices you make every day, the job you take, the places you go, the people you choose to be around. All of these decisions are influenced by unconscious programming. This programming could come from societal expectations, childhood experiences, or unspoken cultural norms. Every choice you make is shaped by an internal narrative you may not even be aware of. Have you ever asked yourself, why am I drawn to this particular job? Why do I constantly end up in relationships with certain types of people? The answer is not as simple as, because I want to. The answer lies in the unconscious forces that shape your desires, often without your consent. Take the example of work. Many people wake up every morning, go to a job they don't enjoy, and then spend their evenings dreading the next day. This is not simply the result of laziness or a lack of ambition. It's a manifestation of the unconscious mind's influence. Your desire to remain in a job you dislike may come from a deeper, unexamined need for validation or security, shaped by societal norms or familial expectations. You may not even realize that your decision to stay in a stifling job comes from an unconscious belief that your worth is tied to external approval, that the only way to be valued is through conventional success. These unconscious beliefs trap you, leading you to continue down a path that makes you unhappy, yet you feel powerless to change. This process isn't just mental, it's neurological. Studies in neuroscience have shown that the unconscious mind operates at a level far beyond our conscious awareness. Our brains are constantly processing information, and much of it happens outside of our conscious perception. The brain has learned to identify patterns and form beliefs based on repeated experiences, many of which occurred long before we were old enough to understand or articulate them. These neural patterns form the foundation of your behavior, and they don't change easily. The more you attempt to will yourself into a different path, the more your unconscious mind pushes back, reinforcing the patterns it has long established. Cognitive biases, too, are a significant consequence of the unconscious mind. These biases, such as confirmation bias, the tendency to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs, or the availability heuristic, the tendency to judge the likelihood of an event based on how easily examples come to mind, shape how we interpret the world. These biases are not conscious decisions. They are automatic, unconscious reactions to stimuli. They influence the way we make sense of information, often leading us to make flawed decisions without even realizing it. And while these biases may seem harmless, over time, they can accumulate, leading you to make choices that don't align with your true desires or needs. The influence of the unconscious mind can even extend into the realm of our physical bodies. Take stress, for example. Many people experience chronic stress, tension, and even physical ailments like back pain, but they may not understand why. The body, in many ways, is a reflection of the unconscious mind. Unresolved emotional tensions, unspoken fears, and repressed desires can manifest as physical symptoms. What you feel in your mind is often mirrored in your body, and yet you might not connect the dots. The unconscious mind, in this sense, is not just a repository of thoughts and memories. It is a living, breathing force that impacts every aspect of your existence, from your emotions to your physical health. So, what are the unseen consequences of this hidden influence? The more you allow these unconscious forces to rule you, the more you lose touch with who you truly are. You become caught in a cycle of self-deception, unable to break free because you are unaware of the traps that have been set for you. The choices you make may seem logical on the surface, but beneath that surface, they are shaped by a network of invisible threads, old wounds, societal pressures, biological impulses that have been directing your life without your knowledge or consent. This is not a small issue. It's a crisis of perception, a distortion of reality that permeates every aspect of your existence. And yet, because these forces are so deeply embedded in your psyche, it's almost impossible to see them for what they are. To truly understand the scope of this problem, you must learn to look beyond the surface of your thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. But that, as you might guess, is not an easy task. Now that you've glimpsed the magnitude of the unconscious mind's influence, its pervasive role in shaping your behavior, relationships, and perceptions, it's time to confront the question that has surely been building in your mind. How do you break free? How can you reclaim control over your life when the forces that guide you are so deeply embedded in your mind? How do you escape the invisible prison that holds you captive when the very thing you are trying to escape, the unconscious mind, is the same thing that gives you your identity, your sense of self? The first thing you need to understand is that this is not a battle of intellect. You will not outthink your unconscious mind. You will not simply will your way to freedom. No amount of positive thinking, self-help books, or motivational speeches will sever the invisible threads of conditioning that tie you to a life you may not even fully understand. This is not an intellectual pursuit, it's an existential one. The path to breaking free lies in a fundamental shift in perspective, one that changes how you relate to yourself, to your mind, and to the world around you. It requires embracing a truth that many fear to acknowledge. You are not simply the thoughts in your head, you are the awareness behind those thoughts. This might sound abstract, but it's crucial. If you want to free yourself from the unconscious forces shaping your life, you must begin by disidentifying with the mind. As simple as this sounds, it is profound. You must stop thinking of yourself as your thoughts. Your thoughts are merely reflections of the unconscious patterns that run your life. They are not your true self. To become free, you must learn to observe the mind without being swept away by it. This idea has roots in some of the most ancient and transformative traditions, from Buddhism to modern psychological practices. Take the work of Eckhart Tolle, for example. In his book, The Power of Now, Tolle emphasizes the importance of the watcher, the conscious observer that sits behind the stream of thoughts, emotions, and reactions that flood our minds. Tolle argues that by simply becoming aware of the present moment and observing your thoughts without judgment, you can begin to disidentify from the mind. This shift, he suggests, is the beginning of true freedom. But this process requires more than just awareness. It demands a complete rejection of the unconscious patterns that have shaped you. Think of it like this. If your unconscious mind has been the one pulling the strings of your life so far, then breaking free means learning to cut those strings. And the first step to doing that is to confront your unconscious beliefs head-on. This requires a willingness to look at yourself with brutal honesty and ask, what am I believing that isn't really mine? This is the work of self-examination, of digging deep into the layers of conditioning that have accumulated over a lifetime. This isn't about finding quick answers or easy solutions. It's about engaging in a long, sometimes painful process of self-inquiry. This is the journey of Carl Jung's concept of individuation, the process of becoming your true self by integrating the unconscious parts of yourself rather than being ruled by them. In Jungian terms, this means confronting the shadow, those parts of the self that have been repressed, denied, or ignored. The shadow is the repository of everything we don't like about ourselves, everything we fear, everything we wish we could erase. But Jung believed that the path to true freedom lay not in rejecting or repressing the shadow, but in fully embracing it. It is only by acknowledging and integrating these darker aspects of ourselves that we can break free from the unconscious patterns that limit us. For instance, if you find yourself repeatedly entering toxic relationships, it might be worth asking yourself, what unconscious need is being fulfilled by this pattern? Perhaps it's a need for validation, for love, or for the comfort of familiarity, even if that familiarity comes with pain. By confronting these hidden desires and beliefs, you can begin to unravel the forces that have been guiding you and reassert your conscious will over them. Another key to breaking free lies in accepting the truth of your own freedom. This is where existential philosophy can offer a powerful tool. Sartre's notion of radical freedom, that we are condemned to be free, highlights that we are never merely products of our circumstances. We are not defined by the unconscious patterns that have been instilled in us. We are the creators of our own meaning. This freedom comes with immense responsibility, but it is also the key to breaking free from the chains of unconscious programming. To reclaim your freedom, you must first confront the fact that you have the power to change. The unconscious mind thrives on the illusion that you are trapped, that you have no choice. It thrives on the idea that your behavior is set in stone, that you are a prisoner of your past and your conditioning. But this is an illusion. As Viktor Frankl observed in Man's Search for Meaning, even in the most dire of circumstances, humans have the capacity to choose how they respond to the world. This is the essence of freedom, the ability to choose your response, your mindset, your next action, regardless of the unconscious forces at play. It's at this point in the journey that the real rebellion begins. To break free is not just to reject the unconscious mind, it's to confront it with awareness, to shed the layers of conditioning that have defined you, and to start creating a new narrative. It's about choosing to live in alignment with your deepest values and desires, rather than living out a story written by the unconscious forces that have dominated your life. This rebellion is not easy. It's a constant, daily practice of self-awareness, self-compassion, and self-examination. It requires you to be courageous enough to face the discomfort of change and the uncertainty of the unknown. But it is also the most powerful and transformative journey you can undertake, because it is the journey toward authentic freedom. The road to freedom is long and winding, and it will require everything. Have your courage, your honesty, and your commitment to yourself. But the reward is nothing less than reclaiming your true self. It is the liberation from the unconscious forces that have shaped your world without your consent. And it is the beginning of living a life that is truly your own. Now, after all that we've explored the hidden forces of the unconscious mind, the psychological chains that have bound you, the rebellion to break free, you may find yourself standing at the edge of something profound, something that redefines everything you thought you knew. And this, my friend, is the ultimate truth. Freedom is not about escaping the unconscious mind. It's about realizing that the unconscious and the conscious are not as separate as you think. This is the revelation that will shatter the illusion, the one truth that reconfigures your entire understanding of yourself and the world. What if the very idea of a battle between the conscious and unconscious mind is itself a fabrication? What if, instead of two opposing forces waging war inside you, there is only one seamless, interconnected whole? Think about it. For most of your life, you've likely seen the unconscious mind as the enemy, something that traps you in patterns, shapes your identity, and dictates your actions. The conscious mind, on the other hand, has been the champion, the one that fights back, seeks to understand, and tries to break free. But here's the truth. This conflict, this dichotomy between the conscious and unconscious, is a false construct. This realization comes from a place of deep inner harmony, the moment when you see that the very reason you've been struggling, fighting the unconscious, is because you've been trying to separate yourself from it. You've been trying to slice your psyche into neat categories, neatly labeling parts of yourself as good, the conscious mind, and bad, the unconscious mind. But this is a profound misunderstanding. Carl Jung, again, offers wisdom here. He believed that the path to individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, requires the integration of both conscious and unconscious aspects of your mind. It's not about banishing the unconscious or overcoming it. It's about integrating it, understanding it, and allowing both realms of your psyche to inform and shape each other. To fully know yourself, you must cease to view the unconscious as a force to be controlled. Instead, you must recognize that it is part of you, a force that, when understood, can lead you to greater self-awareness, creativity, and transformation. In other words, the unconscious mind is not your enemy, it's your ally. It's the wellspring of untapped potential, creativity, and depth. The unconscious is where your true wisdom lies, not buried beneath a layer of repression or fear, but waiting to be unlocked. It is the space of raw, untamed experience where the deepest truths about your existence reside. When you stop fearing it, when you stop trying to control it or ignore it, the unconscious mind becomes a guide. It becomes a source of power, a connection to the parts of yourself that are most authentic, most real. This doesn't mean you simply let the unconscious rule your life. Far from it. Instead, it's about a partnership. The conscious mind, your awareness, your capacity for rational thought, does not have to fight the unconscious. It must learn to listen. It must learn to observe, understand, and integrate the unconscious patterns that arise. This is where true freedom begins. Real freedom is not the absence of the unconscious mind, but the full embrace of it. It is the ability to see yourself not as a fractured, divided being, but as a whole, a unified self. When you achieve this integration, something miraculous happens. You transcend the limitations imposed by unconscious patterns. You stop being the victim of your own programming, because you are no longer bound by it. Instead, you begin to act with conscious awareness, drawing from both the logical, rational aspects of your mind and the intuitive, creative, and emotional wisdom of the unconscious. It's an experience that cannot be fully understood with the intellect. It must be felt. You may, at first, resist this idea, believing that the unconscious mind is too dark, too unpredictable to be trusted. But think of the greatest minds in history, those who have transcended ordinary limits, the artists, the philosophers, the visionaries. They didn't fight their unconscious. They harnessed it. They saw their minds as vast, open landscapes where both the conscious and unconscious played their parts in the dance of creation and discovery. And here lies the ultimate revelation. The unconscious mind is not separate from you. It is you. The parts you've disowned, rejected, or feared, the shadowy corners of your psyche, are not foreign invaders, but aspects of yourself that have been buried. The truth is, you've always had the power to access these deeper parts of yourself. You've always had the freedom to rewrite the narratives you've inherited, to choose a new way of being. This is the kind of freedom that philosophers like Sartre spoke of, a freedom that comes not from the denial of your past or your conditioning, but from the realization that, despite everything that has shaped you, you are free to choose who you will become. The unconscious doesn't define you, it informs you. It is the soil from which you grow, not the cage in which you are trapped. And once you realize this, once you embrace the unconscious as an integral part of who you are, everything changes. Your relationships, your career, your entire experience of life will begin to shift. You will no longer feel at odds with yourself. You will no longer be controlled by invisible forces. Instead, you will find that the unconscious mind, when integrated with the conscious, becomes a source of power, wisdom, and creativity. There is no longer a battle. There is only a dance between the conscious and unconscious, between what you know and what you have yet to discover. And this dance is the essence of true freedom. As you stand at the threshold of this understanding, ask yourself, what might I create if I no longer feared the unconscious mind? What might I become if I no longer viewed myself as a fragmented being, but as a whole, an integrated self? The answer to these questions is as vast and profound as the unconscious mind itself. And it is up to you to explore it. In the end, this journey is not about escaping the mind. It's about embracing it, fully and completely, and allowing yourself to become the person you were always meant to be. The truth about your unconscious mind is not a story of limitation. It is a story of possibility. It is the gateway to everything you could ever imagine. The choice, as always, is yours.